Hey guys, Brad Speed here. I have a brand new set of Motard wheels for the CRF. I've been sort of wanting to get these for quite a while. A couple of months ago, I bought these from a mate who has exactly the same bike. He'd only run them a couple of times and he sort of wasn't using them, so I bought them off him. And you know, obviously the dream is with a Motard set that you have one bike that can do it all. It can do dirt, it can do road, and it can do both really well. And that was certainly my thinking. And you might notice that they're actually not on the bike at the moment. And there's a really good reason for that, which I'll get to in the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through the changes you have to make to the bike, because there are a few modifications that you need to make to be able to run the set, the Motard set, and a few just sort of setup changes that you have to do as well when you install them. And then at the end, I'm going to go through a really honest pro-con, because to be honest, my perspective has changed quite a bit running these for a couple of months. We just kind of, I wanted to jump in and just make a video of this set as soon as I put them on. And I'm really glad that I waited, because I wanted to get a really whole perspective on what it's like running this set, changing between the dirt and the Motard set, and sort of how the bike felt and handled and behaved with the different sets. And I'm really glad I waited, because my perspective changed quite a lot. And you know, it's evident in the fact that they're not currently on the bike. So we'll get there in the end. I'll run you through quickly what the installation process is like and the changes that you have to make, and then we'll get to a pro-con in the end. All right, so first up, you'll notice I try to make it as easy on myself as possible. The Motard set has a disc on it on both, and it also has a sprocket on the rear as well. So you can basically just change the set straight over. The other thing is, because of the ratios I'm running on this with the dirt set and the ratios that I'm running with the sprockets on the Motard set, I also don't have to change my chain, which I thought, you know, that was obviously a significant advantage, because changing my chain is a real pain in the butt. Now, in terms of the sprockets specifically, the dirt set I run most of the time with a 1342. With the Motard set, the biggest rear sprocket, or the highest gearing rear sprocket you can get, so I guess the smallest number of the rear sprocket is a 38, and that's what I've got on here. So with the Motard set, I was running a 1438, which is the tallest gearing that you can run on one of these bikes. Now the tyres on these are Michelin dual compound, and they're called Pilot Streets. Look, they're really good tyres. They're not the ones I would have chosen. I probably would have chosen something a little bit more aggressive, almost like a semi-slick. I've run before. I had a Husqvarna Vitpillen 401, which I was running pretty much exactly that set on, a pretty aggressive set of dual compound Michelins. That being said, these tyres are really good. I honestly have no complaints. Tons and tons of grip. Very, very confidence inspiring when you're riding. Look, I usually run Michelin. Pretty much been a Michelin guy for the however many years, 12 years, whatever I've been riding, because I've always found them just to be, you know, superior quality. On obviously the bike at the moment, just because of what's available, the off-road set, I'm running a Rallycross Pirelli on the front and a Dunlop D606 on the rear, because that just seems to be the best setup for this particular bike. But yeah, obviously no complaints about these tyres. I'm pretty happy with them. Now this Motard set is this KKE brand or whatever. Like I said, I bought them from my mate, so I didn't buy them brand new. Now, doing a bit of research, these are pretty much the cheapest sort of set available. I think they're maybe like a couple $100 cheaper than a lot of the other options. Look, that being said, they balance nicely. They're not warped, they're not buckled. They're a good set. Wheels are wheels. You know, as long as they work, then, you know, it's not like I'm going off-road and, you know, jumping rocks and tree stumps and that sort of thing. So I'm not really worried about them, you know, quality-wise, as long as they do the job. And I have absolutely no complaints about these wheels whatsoever. They're really good. Now, to the things you have to change. I'll start with the front. So the wheels come with these little spacers. There's two sets of spacers they come with. I believe the older, the previous generation CRF had a slightly smaller front shaft. So this is the biggest set. They also come with a smaller set if you have the older model. Look, again, that's my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong, but they came with the two sets anyway, and this had the larger diameter axle. Now, the things that you need to change, there's only a couple of things on the front. I chose to, when I did it, not run the, actually, no, I couldn't run the disc guard, because it interfered with the spacer on the Motard set. So they're a different thickness, so you have to run the spacer. So I obviously chose not to run, well, I really couldn't run the disc guard, which is not a big deal. The other thing you need to change, which is sort of a permanent change, the wheels will rub on the fork guards. So I've just used a belt sander and I've sort of cut out, so get it in focus, cut out these little slots. Obviously installed the set first, saw they were rubbing, and I've just recessed those out so it doesn't rub anymore. Not a big deal, and you can't even see it when you're running the dirt set. So especially if you do it sort of pretty neatly, which I think I have, it's not a drama, honestly, not a big deal. The other thing you need to change when you actually put the set on, you'll see from factory when you're running a dirt set, the brake line wraps around the back of the fork. Now, when you have the Motard wheels on, they will rub on this cable, which obviously you can't have that happen. So what I've been doing is I'll take the front wheel off, take the brake caliper off, wrap it around the fork. So this brake line comes around and wraps around here on the outside, and just reinstall the brake caliper just to stop that rubbing. Again, not a big deal. In theory, what you could do is you could just take the guard off, the cover off. But the reason I didn't do that is because you've got this little brake clamp here, and I wanted to continue running that because I was pretty concerned about the brake line touching the tyre. That's obviously a massive issue if that happens. Now, coming to the rear, all you actually need to change is really just to take the chain guard off. I've considered just not running it, but I have quite a few times had sticks get in here, and I thought, you know what, I'd rather just run it. Because, it's not a bad thing to run off-road. Extra protection isn't a bad thing. Now, my mate, when he had the Motard set on his bike, he actually recessed out a chunk of this so that he could continue running the chain guard. I wasn't particularly worried. It's 2 bolts to take it off. 2 bolts here and a little slide here. So piece of cake to quickly take it off, not a big deal. And then with the, obviously you have to adjust your chain tension when you do it as well. Which again, this chain with the standard number of links, it was fine. It works for both sets. It works for the 1242 and it works for the 1438. No dramas, have well and truly enough adjustment in the adjuster block to be able to run those 2 setups with this 1 length chain. So all in all, there's not too much that you have to change, just a couple of minor setup changes and just those little cutouts on those front fork guards. Not a big deal. The first time I changed it all over, I think it took me about 2 hours. I did change it 2 more times, back to the dirt set, back to the Motard set, and then back to the dirt set again. To be honest, even with a bit of practice, it's still a pain in the ass. I hate changing the sprockets and readjusting the chain on this. I'm really obsessive with everything being correct. I'll sit there with a vernier caliper and measure to make sure the blocks are exactly the same distance apart. For me, at least, it's frustrating. Maybe if you're a little bit more carefree than me, it'd be less of a pain in the ass, but I am how I am. Even with my stand, my hydraulic stand under the bike, lifting it up in the air, it's still a pain in the ass. As soon as you take the front wheel off, you've got to put a block or something under the rear because the whole bike wants to tip back. It's not as bad with the front, but it is still an issue. It's painful. Even with a bit of practice, it still takes me an hour to an hour and a half to change over. And it's a frustrating hour and a half. Heavy lifting, particularly the front axle, is such a pain in the butt. I really wish Honda didn't use this particular design of front axle because the thread is actually in the bottom of the fork. So it's not like you put the whole axle through with a nut on the other side like it is with the rear. I really hate the way they designed this because trying to, with the weight of the wheel and the bike's wobbling around, both the forks are trying to twist and it's trying to get the axle to go through, keeping the spacers in there as well, and then get it to go into the thread neatly without it wanting to cross thread. It's such a pain in the ass. The bottom of the fork is aluminium and the axle is steel, so that cross threading is a serious danger. I must admit, one of the times it started to cross thread. I only got about half a turn in, but I realized it was happening straight away. Now with that sort of thing, I'm a panel beater, I'm a professional tradesman, I do this sort of stuff all day. Worked in a bike shop for, I think, 12 years before that. Like, I know what I'm doing, and it was still so easy to accidentally cross-thread that. And to be clear, it's not actually damaged, but if I'd just been a bit of a numpty and just been impatient and just chucked the rattle gun on it and just done it up, I would have ruined it. I would have ruined my fork. So that is a little bit of a danger. And to be honest, it kind of put a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. I really wish, again, Honda hadn't chosen that design of axle, but it is what it is. Let me get to the pro-con. So when I first put the set on, I was honestly really impressed. It was like, wow, the bike is like, the road noise from the dirt tires is obviously gone. The bike rode so much smoother. It was stiffer, more responsive. I really liked it. I went for a couple of long rides with my wife on the back. It was so much better on the road in terms of just general feel and handling. Particularly with her on the back, it was honestly a breeze. We were cruising on the highway at like, I must admit, we got up to about 120, but the bike was cruising. I could cruise at 110, and that's a genuine 110, not a 110 on the dash. A genuine 110 on GPS, and it was just cruising. I think it was doing like 7,000 RPM. Easy. I'd be quite comfortable to tour around, you know, do whatever. It was really comfortable. Now, where I didn't like the Motard set is it significantly changes the geometry of the bike. What I mean by this, so the size of the Motard wheels is a significantly smaller diameter than the dirt set. And what this does, Honda have specifically set this bike up for, I think it's a 21 on the front and 18 on the rear. So the rake, the height of the bike, the setup in general is set up to feel right at that wheel size. When you go and put a significantly smaller wheel on, it totally changes the steering geometry. And the effect that this had in real life, say you're coming around a corner, right? You know, we all know about pushing the inside of the handlebars, your counter steering, coming around, and that makes the bike lean in, right? And when a bike is set up correctly, it should be pretty natural. So you come around a left-hand turn. It's a very gentle push on the left-hand side of the bar to get the bike to lean in. With the Motard set, it's almost like if you've ridden a bike with a flat front or rear tire where it's sort of fighting you and the steering wants to pull into the corner. Very unnatural. And it really was quite noticeable with this Motard set. You can counteract it, 100%, but it doesn't feel right. You're sort of fighting the bike, like wrangling it around corners, especially if you go, I went for a couple of really nice long rides, like 3-hour rides plus, up through the mountains, up through twisty sections. And the bike had plenty of grip. You know, it was smooth, it had a very confident feel, but around corners, it's just not nice. It just feels unnatural. It feels like there's something wrong with the bike. And I guess in essence there is. The setup and the geometry of the steering and the handling is wrong for these wheels. Now maybe this doesn't bother you, but it really bothered me. So, you know, I ran the bike for about, I don't know, 5-6 weeks with the Motard set. We had a massive bout of rain here. We had a couple of, like a big cyclone come through, a couple of gum trees fell across the driveway. We're actually stuck on the property for a few days. So my only way of getting out and getting supplies for the family was chucking the dirt set back on and sort of on the big property, you know, cutting through the bush to get out on the road to get to the shops and get some supplies. So I had to put the dirt set back on for that. As soon as I put the dirt set on, I took it for a ride, was like, wow, this is so instantly noticeable. The bike feels so much better. It handles so much nicer. It feels right. It just didn't feel wrong anymore. I'd gotten used to the bike feeling like crap with the Motard wheels. As soon as you put the dirt set back on, it's like, oh, there it is. It's right again. This is how it's meant to feel. The bike's not fighting me around corners. You know, the cons of running the dirt set on the road, bit of extra road noise. I guess it's not quite as smooth. I would take that any day over fighting an unnatural feeling steering geometry. It's chalk and cheese between the two sets. Sure, the Motard set offers more grip. It offers more road smoothness. You know, in terms of the being able to cruise at 110, with the 42 and the 14 sprockets on the bike, with the dirt set, it's a pretty similar gearing ratio to the 1438 on the Motard set, because the diameter of the rear wheel is obviously a lot smaller with the Motard set, so that brings your gearing down a little bit. It's about, I don't know, 500 RPM higher at the same speed, but it's like I can still cruise at 110. It's manageable if I have to go on the highway for a little bit. I would much rather ride the bike with the dirt set and a 1442 than I would the Motard set on the road. Now, to me, that defeats the whole purpose of running a Motard set. It should be better on the road. And the other thing is, then when I want to take it on the dirt, it's a huge pain in the ass to swap them. And every time, it's not just one swap, it's 2 swaps, because you've got to swap to the dirt set and then swap back to the Motard set. And I'm here thinking, look, every time you pull that thread, particularly out of that front axle, you're stressing an aluminium thread inside it, which is a softer metal, obviously, than steel. Every time you do that, you're stressing it. You know, the part that's easy to replace is the axle. The part that's hard and expensive to replace is the bottom of the fork, and that's the part that's wearing out, the hard, expensive part to replace. And say I change them 5 or 6 times a year, Every time I do that, I'm stressing that thread again and again, even using it. You sit there and use a torque wrench, so I'm getting it up to the right torque spec. I'm not overstraining the thread. The reality is you're still wearing your thread out every single time you take that axle in and out. Say you do it 5-6 times a year, which again, 5-6 times changes a year is only changing the wheels 3 times, because it's 2 changes per set change. I had the bike 3 or 4 years, that's 20 changes. 20 times I'm stressing that thread out. And again, maybe I'm being a little bit pedantic here, but that sort of stresses me out because I don't want to sell this bike. This is a forever bike for me. I love this bike. So that is a bit of a concern. The other thing I didn't really think about or notice until I actually changed them for the first time. So brake pads bed into the disc, right? So over time, your disc will wear grooves in it and the brake pads bed into those grooves so they actually match together and meet nicely and you get good braking. Now, my brake pads were obviously bedded into the discs that are on my dirt set. When I put the Motard wheels on, I didn't really think about it, but I took it for a ride and was like, oh my God, I've done something wrong. The brakes aren't working properly, especially the rear. It was terrible. I thought about it, I'm like, hang on, the discs on these wheels are nearly new, so they're completely flat. And my pads are worn in for the dirt set. They're all bedded into the dirt set. They have the grooves in them from that set of discs. The braking was reduced by, I would say, probably 40%, like a lot for the first couple hundred Ks. I live on a big hill, come down the bottom of the hill, have a big T intersection. And the first time I rode down, I actually scared the crap out of me because I was like, oh my God, I can't stop. What's going on? I've done something wrong, something's seriously wrong here. That's just how it is. So, you know, this might seem pedantic, but it's really noticeable on the bike. So if you were gonna do the set change, I guess the most correct way, and you were planning on regularly changing them over, you would also need to buy yourself a second set of pads. So you have one set of pads that's bedded into the Motard set, and you have another set of pads that's bedded into the dirt set. And that just, again, makes it even more of a pain in the ass. And it's not like my pads were really worn out. I recently changed them both. So they're nice, good, fresh pads that aren't that heavily grooved. And the difference was really noticeable straight away. So again, it just adds to the complexity and the pain in the arseness of changing the 2 sets. Now, it's not like I'm being really negative on the Motard wheels, but just to balance it, like I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they affect the bike in a few negative ways that I don't like, as well as positive, but they're such a pain in the butt to change. So to me, on a balance of factors, I probably won't run them very often. Say it's in the middle of summer and it's just non-stop rain and I'm probably not gonna go dirt riding for a little while, then I'll probably change them. If you're gonna keep them on for say 3 months, then it's probably worth doing if that's your plan. For 3 months of the year, I'm gonna run Motard sets, and for the other 9 months of the year, I'm gonna run the dirt set. That's probably worthwhile. I'll probably do that. I tend to ride dirt most of the year. You know, I take the kids out, they have a couple of dirt bikes. So we're pretty much doing that throughout the whole year. So for me, it's not really a thing that I can just put them on and leave them on there for 3 months, because then I can't go riding with the kids. I think just for me, I don't know that I'll really run them very often. If it was you and you were planning on just, you know, not riding dirt for 3 months of the year, maybe where you live, it just rains crazy for 3 months of the year, you know, tropical climate or something, or maybe snow or, you know, whatever, maybe it's worth doing that then. But for me, it's not. And I honestly don't know if I'm going to use them again. Sort of tossing up, is it worth me selling them and getting a second dirt set? That way I can have a really aggressive off-road set for when I go, you know, riding some harder stuff with friends, and then have a less aggressive set that I can ride off-road with the kids and ride on the road. I don't know, I'm still tossing up because these are obviously dot rated tires, and there has been a couple of times in really thick mud that I've struggled for grip. You know, so I'm just sort of tossing up. If I had 2 CRFs, I would put a Motard set on one and a dirt set on the other, and then it would be sweet. I'll probably even look at lowering the forks on the Motard set, because I think that would mostly fix the steering geometry. And I think that'll be a better thing. But, you know, the dream of having one bike that does it all, in reality, it's really frustrating. I don't know that I would recommend it. Look, I don't want to discourage you from getting them. If you really want a Motard set, go get them, because there are a lot of pros to them. They're awesome on the road. It's a couple of niggly things, and changing them is a pain, but look, there are definitely pros to having them. I'm not gonna go get rid of this set. I'm not actually intending on selling them at the moment. I haven't sort of made my mind up, but you know, I don't want to be the reason you don't get them, but I think it'd be good for you to be a little bit more informed before you make that decision, because yeah, there definitely are some cons to it. Certainly some that I didn't expect there to be before I bought them. So hopefully you got some useful information out of this. And if you were looking at getting a set, you just got a bit more, I guess, information to make a more informed decision before you go and spend your hard-earned on a set of wheels. Because, you know, realistically, the wheels are going to cost you probably about $1,000 if you buy a cheapish set. By the time you put a decent set of tyres, tubes, brake discs and sprocket, you're going to be up for close to $2,000. And I'd hate for someone to spend $2,000 and then be disappointed. Now, I'm not disappointed, it's just not quite what I was expecting, and I don't know if it's something that I will run long term based on my experience with them. Anyway, thanks for watching, and if you got something useful out of this video, do me a favor, hit the like, and if you give me a subscription, I'd also appreciate that because it helps me out, because I am going to be making some more videos. I know I'm a little bit lazy with this channel, I've got some other stuff going on, and but I will be putting out some more stuff a bit more regularly. I'm going to try to anyway, because I don't really believe in just making videos for the sake of making them. I want to give you guys proper content and really earn that subscription. So anyway, I appreciate hitting that sub, and I'll see you next time.